want my prize!
So do I.
The millennia-old witch Agatha clashes with the magic of death. The identity of the mysterious Gothic boy remains a mystery, as the witch's song, passed down for centuries, echoes once more. What is opened before everyone? Is it the door of hope or the door of death? The most acclaimed Marvel spin-off series of 2024, Agatha, Coven of Chaos, finally concludes. It takes you into the world of Wanda's mentor and arch-nemesis, the most complex and cunning witch in history, Agatha. Without further ado, let's get started. In WandaVision, Agatha tries to seize Wanda's magical powers. Unexpectedly, she is defeated by Wanda, who has become the Scarlet Witch. Her powers are taken away from her. Her memories are erased. She is permanently left in Westview. Agatha is a detective in Westview. Not long ago, she was suspended for excessive force. Now she is called back for a case. The reason is simple. No one but Agatha can solve this case. This morning, the dispatch center received an anonymous call. A female corpse was found by the creek. The only thing on the deceased was a library card from the Westview branch. The cause of death was blunt force trauma, and the victim appeared to have been heavily crushed. So this is not the primary crime scene. In a nearby puddle, Agatha found a brooch. She doesn't tell her partner. Agatha puts the item in her pocket. Then, Agatha heads to the library to gather information. The library card has no name, but it does have a date written on it. The book borrowed by the deceased is Dialogue and Rhetoric, a history of learning and debate. The author is named Andrew Uggers. Paula checked the computer and discovered that this book has not been checked out, because it was stolen 3 years ago. Moreover, not long ago, the library experienced a fire, destroying many books. Agatha deduced that the fire was intentionally caused by a blowtorch, so the chief sends officers to investigate. In addition, the soil sample found under the victim's nails has been analyzed. It does not match the soil at the discovery site, and contains microbial deposits. Only soil from Eastern Europe contains this particular component. Thus, the FBI has sent Agent Vita to assist in the investigation. Although Agatha has a poor relationship with her, she cannot disobey her superior's orders. Agent Vita stated that the biggest point of suspicion in the entire case is the lack of drag marks, no footprints from the assailant, and the body seems to have appeared out of nowhere. In the afternoon, Agatha seeks someone to identify the brooch. The craftsmanship and material resemble something from the late 17th century, possibly originating from North America or New England. The primary material of the brooch is mother of pearl. The design features the triple goddess, representing the maiden, mother, and crone. The brooch has a hidden mechanism inside, which contains a lock of hair. At night, Agatha studies the information she has gathered. She lists all the capital letters from the books the deceased borrowed, all the uppercase letters, and discovered they form a new name, the Darkhold. This book was taken by Wanda in WandaVision. It was seized by Wanda. The book contains the spells of the ancient evil god Thon. Agatha returns home, feeling agitated. She sadly pushes open the bedroom door. The bedroom is filled with children's belongings, but the bed is neatly made, indicating no one has lived there for a long time. A knock at the door interrupts Agatha's thoughts. It is Vita at the door, holding a pizza in her hand. Agatha assumed that she has come to discuss the case. She mentioned that she has a lead. An hour before the time of death, there was a car accident in Eastview. There were bloodstains in the back seat. Both airbags had deployed. The owner may be the one who disposed of the body, but Agatha feels she's looking in the wrong direction. Just as the words left her lips, a loud noise suddenly came from upstairs. Agatha went upstairs to check and found that someone was trying to steal something. The thief jumped out the window and fled. Agatha chased after him as well, but the incident happened so suddenly, she hadn't reacted in time. Agatha almost stepped into thin air and fell down the stairs. She grabbed onto a pipe and landed on the ground. Agatha continued to chase the thief. The thief attempted to climb over the fence, but he was scared back by a dog in the backyard. He turned and ran away frantically. The thief was struck by a car. Agatha told the elderly lady not to worry. Then she brought the thief back to the station for questioning. The thief refused to give his name. Moreover, he seemed to know a lot about Agatha. He kept provoking her. Agatha was in a bad mood. She didn't want to waste any more time.
What were you after?
The road.
What road?
You of all people should know.
Talking to the riddle man is always a hassle. Agatha directly asks him what he was doing between 1 and 3 last night. The thief claimed that he was sleeping during that time, but Agatha doesn't believe his story.
What do you know about that?
Nothing! Nothing!
Tell me who she is.
I don't know! Talking about these are just flowers.
The case photos on the table transformed into a garden. The glass in the interrogation room changed into a painting. The thief murmurs quietly, ignoring Agatha's questions. She has no choice but to cuff him and detain him. Agatha begins to doubt if something is wrong with her mind. How did the corpse photos turn into a garden? She drives to the coroner's office in Westview. Agatha wants to see with her own eyes the nameless female corpse, but there is nothing in the morgue. Agatha forces herself to remain calm. She has seen that body before. The deceased was nearly 30 years old, with a pair of green eyes. As Agatha continues to remember, the body reappears in the morgue. Beneath the sheet, a strand of red hair is revealed. Agatha picks up the name tag, and a line of red text appears on it. October 13th, Wanda Maximoff.
That witch is gone, and all the copies of the Darkhold with her, leaving you trapped in her distorted spell.
Clearly, all the current plot is a curse set by the witch to trap Agatha. The backstory is covered in WandaVision, so I won't elaborate on it here. And Vita's purpose this time is to awaken Agatha, to help her regain her name and identity. Agatha wakes up feeling extremely irritable. She is bare from the waist up. Agatha rushed to her neighbor's door. She asks them how long she has lived in this town. Neighbor David and the police know Agatha's true identity. They have played along with Agatha for 3 years. Marvel is becoming a detective series, now that they see her awake. Everyone breathes a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, Agatha tries to use her magic. She discovered her powers have been taken by Wanda. Just then, a knocking sound comes from behind the cabinet. Agatha opened the door to check. It turns out to be the thief she captured earlier. Agatha hasn't even untied him yet when the witch Vita rushes in. In the past, Agatha had the Darkhold. She couldn't defeat Agatha, but now, Vita easily overpowers her. Agatha won't go down without a fight. According to witch law, Vita cannot kill her. She must wait for Agatha to regain her powers. But besides Vita, many others want her dead. Vita stated that the 7 witches of Salem are also looking for her. They are expected to arrive after sunset. After saying this, she leaves the town. The reason the thief awakens Agatha is that he wants to find the legendary witch's path. It is said that the witch's path will give you what you desire most, but the condition is that you must persevere until the end. The thief is very confident that he can complete the witch's path and gain magic, but Agatha doesn't want to be the guide. The thief advised her that she also needs the witch's path to restore her magic. Otherwise, when the 7 witches of Salem arrive, will she be able to handle it now? That's a valid point. Agatha asks the thief what his name is, but he is under a spell, so Agatha cannot know his name. For now, we'll call him Dean. In summary, Agatha decides to seek the witch's path. From the name, it's clear that they need a witch to guide them in. According to the Coven's rules, even the most destitute witches can ignite sparks, as long as they gather together. During the conversation, the two arrive at the medium's house. They want to know if the medium is a witch.
Thank you so much for seeing us. We are hoping for a miracle today.
Agatha pretends to be a single mother. Her purpose for coming is to communicate with her deceased husband. Upon hearing this, the medium starts babbling into her crystal ball. Seeing her nonsense, Agatha is about to leave, but then the medium's tone shifts.
You've been under the influence of another, someone you hurt. They took your agency.
Clearly, the medium named Lilia is a real witch. However, Agatha has a bad reputation, and no witches want to join her coven. Agatha directly confesses. She explained that she needs to access the witch's path to regain her lost magic, and she needs a witch to help her. Lilia responds, she's not foolish. Her ability is to steal others' magic. What if they complete the witch's path, and Agatha steals her magic? Agatha replied that she cannot take Lilia's magic unless Lilia attacks first. As long as they don't cross boundaries, they can achieve a win-win situation. Moreover, she just saw an eviction notice, indicating that Lilia is about to lose the shop. Rather than continuing to hide, it would be better for her to join Agatha's coven. He can obtain what he desires through the witch's path. Lilia is convinced by Agatha, and she writes down the names of 3 witches. Gathering these individuals, they can reassemble the coven. Dean leaves Agatha's business card, telling Lilia to meet at 5. After their conversation, they set out to find the next witch, Ada. Ada has also lost her magic. Agatha mentioned that She is rallying the coven. She needs a potion witch, but Ada shows no reaction. Just then, Dean suddenly pulls out his phone. On the screen is written, the name of the health center Ada founded. It is currently facing a class action lawsuit. Her charges are fraudulent misrepresentation leading to consumer harm. Dean adds, even if these charges are upheld, the punishment isn't severe. It's just a fine, and 5 years in prison. But if Ada joins them, she can regain her freedom, and also recover her magic. Ada's expression changes upon hearing this. Dean hands over his business card, telling Ada to think it over, and come to the meeting tonight. Next, Agatha and Dean go to meet the third witch. This time, the person they are meeting is quite special. She is the Blood Witch Alice, the daughter of rock goddess Lorna Wu. There are rumors that Lorna Wu died on the witch's path. At this moment, Alice is working at a grocery store. Agatha tells Dean to pretend to be a thief. Alice runs over and catches him. Agatha seizes the opportunity to build a connection. She said that she needs a guardian witch to join her on the witch's path. Her tone is intense, but persuading Alice won't be easy. After all, her mother died on the witch's path. Agatha stops Alice, who is about to leave. She asks Alice if she doesn't want to know what caused her mother's death. At these words, Alice pushed past the two and left. There are only 2 hours until sunset, but right now, they have only found 2 witches. Agatha refuses to seek the last one. Feeling helpless, Dean has no choice but to drive back home. A wolf stands in front of Agatha's door. This is not a symbol of luck. Fortunately, Lilia, Ada, and Alice, ultimately, they choose to come to the meeting. Agatha claps her hands and ready to depart. Ada stated that something is off. She still needs a green witch. Dean asks what the name of the last witch is. Lilia expressed that she is also unclear. Magic compelled her to draw a black heart. Only Agatha knows who that person is, but clearly, she doesn't want to seek Miss Blackheart for help. In order to deal with her stubborn companions, Agatha goes to find her neighbor Hart. She invites Hart to join the party tonight.
Mrs. Davis, dear, no,
right.
Mrs. Hart was what Wanda,
Davis was sent by Wanda to deceive Agatha as a background actor. How could she possibly be the green witch the coven needs? So when they finish singing, the witches lament. The door to the witch's path does not open. Meanwhile, the 7 witches of Salem have arrived. Dean used a couch to block the door. However, a cold breath rushes in. Agatha senses the danger. She angrily berates the witches as useless. They can't even open the door. Unfortunately, Lilia sees through Agatha's trap. The witch's path is all a lie. Agatha wants to provoke everyone, to make them attack her willingly. In this way, Agatha can steal the magic from Lilia and the others.
I don't have time for this! Just blast me, you bitches! What is that?
A door truly appears in the ground. Agatha is also shocked. Unexpectedly, Davis has been hiding her true power. When did she become a witch? At this moment, Dean hurriedly hides in the basement. Seeing the door behind him, he quickly dives inside. The 7 witches are about to chase after him. The others have no time to think. They enter through the opening. Agatha follows them into the underground. Then the door disappears. They walk down the stairs to the front of the witch's path. Agatha took the lead and removed her shoes.
I never doubted us for a second.
The 6 of them walk out a short distance. Davis raises an objection. Didn't Agatha invite her to the party? This kind of behavior is called kidnapping now. After saying this, she pulls out her phone to call the police. Everyone knows without thinking that there's no signal in a place like this. At this point, everyone is now part of a group. Agatha introduced the witch's path. It will test our understanding of witchcraft. Each ability has a trial. Ada asks upon hearing this. She has no magic. How can she pass the trial? Dean replied that there's always a solution. Doesn't she have handmade magic? The essence of witchcraft lies in technique.
Who are you?
Someone's put a sigil on that boy.
The magical symbol is a simplified spell that hides secrets. Dean's background is a secret. Agatha knows the truth. That's why she keeps Dean by her side. He might be quite special. While the group is engaged in a heated discussion, Davis suddenly disappears. The elderly lady doesn't believe that magic exists in the world. She firmly believes this tunnel is the remnants of a failed transportation system. So she searches for an exit everywhere. Just as she sits down to rest, her bag beside her begins to sink.
Oh my god!
The others hear the old lady scream, and rush over to pull her out of the mire. Agatha warns everyone not to stray from the witch's path. Just then, Ada suddenly looks ahead. At the end of the golden path, there is actually a house. The door is engraved with a lunar diagram. Davis steps forward and rings the doorbell. Agatha pushes the door open and walks in. The others follow suit. The house is decorated in a neat and cozy manner. The moment the six enter, their clothing changes as well. Dean comments that this space has an atmosphere of middle-aged people seeking love. After confirming, they find that all the doors and windows cannot be opened. On the mantle, there is an invitation letter. It reads, Witch's Path. Everyone is cordially invited to participate in the first trial. Behind it is a riddle. My age has value. I am no fun alone. I can manipulate your mind. My trick is known to everyone. Davis says the answer is wine. The group turns around to check. There is fine wine laid out on the table. Dean goes to the cupboard to look for a corkscrew. Ada rushes over to remind him that he should be cautious of Agatha. There are rumors that she would go so far as to use her own child to barter for the Book of the Dead. No one knows what happened to that child. Some say he may have died, and others say he became Mephisto's agent. Dean understood that Agatha is dangerous, but she is the one who knows the witch's path best. After Agatha pours the red wine, the other witches hesitate to act. Davis finishes her drink first. She truly has the talent of a witch. Just after Davis finishes, an electronic clock starts counting down. The rest hold their glasses as well. They move to the sofa area. While everyone isn't paying attention, Agatha pours out the wine in her glass. Then, she places the wine glass on the cupboard. More wine appears in the glass. As for Davis, she is already quite drunk at this point. She says some harsh words. Davis declares, if it can smooth the wrinkles on her face, forget about drinking fake wine to be a witch. She would even be willing to drink human blood. Just as her words finish, Davis conjures up a perfect face. The wrinkles do indeed disappear. The wine is definitely problematic. Soon, the remaining witches also swell up like pigs.
My face! My formerly perfect face!
Honestly, I don't hate it.
Ada is the potion witch. To identify what poison is in the wine, she immediately asks Davis if she has any other uncomfortable symptoms, such as a scratchy throat, or hearing ringing sounds, along with the cries of little fairies. Before Davis can answer, their faces return to normal. Agatha breathes a sigh of relief. She had been covering her face. Agatha is afraid everyone will find out that she hasn't drunk any wine. Ada noticed that the swelling subsides quickly. She speculated that they have fallen victim to the revenge of the brewmaster. The swelling of their faces is just the beginning. Next comes dizziness, delirium, and loss of motor function. Then hallucinations leading to death. Upon hearing this, Agatha plans to smash the window and escape. Ada stated that running won't help if they are poisoned. Unexpectedly, Dean discovered the wine on the cupboard. He realized that Agatha hasn't drunk any. Dean accuses her of cheating. The coven must face the trial together. Agatha is exposed, but she isn't embarrassed. She points out that Dean didn't drink either. Ada points out that he isn't even a member of the coven, and he's underage, so he can't drink. Upon hearing this, Agatha immediately smashes the wine glass. But rules are rules. Alice picks up the cup on the table. A glass of red wine appears in it. Dean stated that if Agatha won't drink, then he will. Agatha grabs him, then takes the glass and drinks it all. She pretends to be very concerned for Dean. Just then, Davis begins to hallucinate. After calling out Wanda's name, Davis falls into a coma. This trial is directed at the potion witch Ada. She must concoct an antidote before the countdown ends. The antidote for the revenge of the brewmaster. It requires frankincense and insect intestines, and a rotting corpse. In simple terms, it's plankton preserved in oil. Everyone quickly starts gathering the materials. Agatha and Lilia head to the garage to find gasoline. The garage has nothing. They go to the second floor to rummage through cosmetics. The two pray for some organic materials. On the other side, Alice and Dean smell the fragrance of massage oil. Before Alice can act, the side effects of the poisoning kick in. She sees a room ahead filled with white mist, so she pushes the door open and steps inside. Alice's mother Lorna Wu sits in front of a makeup mirror. She cries as she tells her daughter that her grandmother died today, even thousands of miles apart. She can still feel the moment she took her last breath. Now it's her turn. Lorna Wu finishes speaking and drinks what's in her hand. Dean hears a sound and comes over to help Alice up. Dean says he found frankincense oil. Meanwhile, The other witches also begin to hallucinate. Ada sees a man in a lab coat. He criticizes Ada as a nuisance. Then, he pushes her into a sink filled with water. As Ada struggles to lift herself, the hallucination vanishes. At this moment, Lilia sees a beautiful little girl. She follows the girl into a corridor. The walls around her are covered in vines, giving it a very ancient appearance. Lilia enters a room and sees an elderly woman, along with a skeleton in a black cloak. Lilia steps back in fright and bumps into Agatha. Fortunately, the earlier hallucination has already vanished. On the other side, Dean and Alice hand the frankincense to Ada. Then, they head to the pantry to look for insect intestines. Although this description sounds frightening, it actually refers to honey. Immediately after, Agatha and Lilia return to regroup. Suddenly, there's the sound of glass shattering in the living room. Salt water leaks in from outside. They must be trapped underwater. The glass won't hold for long. Ada looks for materials on site. She uses the sink as a large pot. Ada pours in various ingredients. The liquid in the sink begins to emit a soft glow, but Ada forgets the most important thing. She doesn't know how to make the potion boil. The sink doesn't have heating capabilities. Fortunately, Dean comes up with an idea. There's usually a slow cooker in the kitchen. It's a trendy cooking appliance. It can heat water to a specific temperature. To cook meat, they plug in the machine. Then she stirs the liquid with her hand. Next, they pull out a hair and throw it in. At this moment, Agatha heard the sound of a baby crying. She falls into a traumatic hallucination. Agatha walks toward the cradle that's making the noise. She lifts the blanket to look inside. Inside is the Book of the Dead. Agatha can't help but let out a wail. Fortunately, Ada wakes her up just in time. Agatha quickly gathers herself. She pulls out a hair and tosses it into the sink. The group gathers around the sink. They think to themselves, survive. If the potion is correct, it will turn blue.
I get cerulean and chartreuse confused. Is cerulean the green one?
No, it's blue.
Then it's not working.
Ada panics. She must have forgotten something important. There are only 50 seconds left. The more anxious Ada becomes, the less she can remember. If this were in the past, she could have completed it. With a wave of her hand, Agatha grabs the collapsing Ada. She helps her regain her composure. They can take away your magic, but they can't take away your potion knowledge. In a critical moment, Ada finally remembered that they are missing an ingredient. That is the blood of someone who hasn't been poisoned. Agatha cuts Dean's palm, letting the blood drip into the sink. The water turns blue. They each drink a cup of the potion. After a few seconds, they remember Davis. They pass the potion over to her to drink. As the countdown ends, the oven door suddenly swings open. This place is the exit. Lilia complained that she doesn't want to crawl into the oven. Just as she finishes speaking, the glass behind them shatters. Salt water rushes in. They quickly dive into the oven. Of course, they forgot to bring Davis with them. They feel like they are on a water park ride. The group slides down the waterway and lands in an open area because they drank the antidote too late. Mrs. Davis has already passed away. Dean prepared to dig a grave to bury her. Everyone was afraid that Alice would be saddened by the sight. She explained that her mother did not die because of the witch's path. She died in a fire during a performance. The reason Alice agreed to team up with Agatha was that her mother had told her before she died that Alice must take a trip down the witch's path. Mrs. Davis's death resulted in one less green witch in the coven. Having one less person would definitely create a problem. Agatha decided to break the rules and found a way to summon a green witch. The group stood in a line and recited the incantation together. They also made a bunch of requests, such as wanting the newcomer to be smart, attractive, and not politically inclined. After a complicated summoning process, Vita crawled out of the ground. Agatha instantly felt a headache coming on. However, since it had come to this, they couldn't just shove her back. The group continued along the path, and they saw a small house with lights on. Alice suddenly wanted to give up. She was unwilling to enter the little house. Alice prepared to go in another direction. But soon, the house changed its position. Clearly, she had no choice but to enter. This time, the door also had a lunar phase diagram, specifically a waxing moon. After they entered the room, their outfits changed once again. The theme resembled an 80s disco vibe. Various instruments were placed in the room, likely making it a recording studio. Due to their previous experience, they decided not to drink anything randomly. Dean suggested looking for an invitation, as it would likely contain new riddles. Lilia stood alone in front of the mural. She seemed to think of something, and Lilia began to wipe her tears. On the other side, Alice also saw a photo of her mother on the wall. In summary, the entire house emitted a strange atmosphere. Vita found an opportunity to be alone with Agatha. Vita did not know the witches outside. She wanted to convince Agatha to kill these people, just like they had done before. You gain magic, and I take the bodies. Agatha secretly devised a trick, and turned on the recording studio's microphone. Vita's plans were transmitted into the ears of the other witches. Then Agatha deliberately refused. After hearing the conversation, the others wanted to settle the score with Vita. Unexpectedly, the next second, a cacophony filled the air. It turned out that Dean had played a loud piece of music. He found a note that said "Play me." This piece was originally Witch's Path, but for some reason, it was playing in reverse. That's why it sounded unusually grating. Seeing that she couldn't turn off the music, Agatha picked up the record player and smashed it. The entire house returned to silence, with only the piano's metronome swinging continuously. Clearly, this indicated that the trial had begun. However, there were no changes around them, until Alice suddenly spoke up. "Does anyone feel lighter?" Everyone looked confused. They did not share the same feeling. But the next second, Lilia suddenly fell to the ground, screaming. She seemed to be experiencing excruciating pain. Alice quickly drew a circle to break the curse. But soon, Ada also fell to the ground, screaming. Alice broke the curse using the same method. Those affected had scars appear on their shoulders. Then the reverse tune continued to play. Alice suddenly seemed to think of something, and she became emotionally agitated. Alice repeatedly said, "I can't save her." Then she pulled down her collar, to reveal an old scar. Her mother had the same marks on her body. This was known in the witching community as the curse of generations. As soon as she finished speaking, Dean was also hit by the curse. However, he was not a member of the coven. He was simply thrown back by the force. How can the curse of generations be broken? Alice glanced at the recording device on the piano. Agatha instantly understood her thoughts. "We need to sing Rona Wu's Witch's Path. This version is different from the original."
What did Lorna want from the road? What was her intention?
To save her daughter.
It turned out that Alice was also at the fire scene that year. She should have been burned to ashes. Alice was alive now solely because of Rona Wu's Witch's Path. It was a protective spell that secretly safeguarded Alice as she grew. So, if the coven wanted to protect themselves, they had to sing Witch's Path. Soon, everyone found their instruments of expertise. Then they began to sing Witch's Path. During this, a curse appeared on Agatha, but it was quickly suppressed by the singing. However, the power of the curse was also rising. Suddenly, flames erupted around them. Agatha shouted not to be perfunctory. They needed to play with all their hearts. As the flames grew stronger, Alice joined the chorus. She quickly saw the true form of the demon that cast the curse within the song. Alice stared at it and continued singing. She unleashed a powerful energy. Alice ignored the demon perched on her shoulder. She finally repelled it and won the trial. The piano opened to reveal an exit forward, but Dean fell to the ground. He had many wounds on his body, and Agatha became uncontrollable. Her attitude had been cold, but now she was afraid something would happen to Dean. Fortunately, the potion witch Ada was nearby. Soon, she healed Dean's wounds. After going through trials, Ada's abilities had improved. The group planned to rest in place until Dean woke up. Ada also shared the reason. She lost her magic. Ada was originally a herbalist and midwife. She had been invited to join the new Greater Boston Obstetrics Association to share her expertise. The so-called association was a trap, and Ada had her magic taken by the conspirators. Agatha did not join the heart-to-heart meeting. She stayed by Dean's side. Before long, he regained consciousness. When Dean woke up, he suddenly asked if Agatha was behind the magical symbols on him. In fact, even Agatha couldn't provide evidence, because the magical symbols were equally effective against the witch who cast them. But the good news was that, at a certain time, the symbols would naturally disappear.
You don't have to know a person's name to know who they are.
Careful you don't say something nice to me.
Vita seemed to understand the reason for Agatha's tenderness towards Dean. She had to remind her, that boy is not yours. Could it be that Agatha saw Dean as her own son? In 1693, Agatha was betrayed by the coven, and was bound to a stake for trial. But she suddenly unleashed a surge of energy. Agatha killed several witches. Although Agatha killed sister witches, she softened and spared their children. These children formed a fierce coven to avenge their mothers. They became known as the 7 Witches of Salem. At this moment, the 7 witches were tracking Agatha by her traces, and Lilia sensed their presence. The protagonists summoned the spell used to call the Green Witch, inadvertently drawing the 7 witches closer. Without delay, they had to run quickly. At this point, they had to use the witch's broom. Although it was indeed useful, it had been stigmatized by films and television. Everyone felt a bit resistant, riding brooms everywhere, but with their lives at stake, they could no longer be pretentious. Just as Dean was about to take out the broom, an owl suddenly appeared. It instantly transformed into a witch, and tackled Dean to the ground. Alice quickly used the broom to knock it away. The group seized the opportunity to jump on their brooms and escape the scene. The shadow of the witch swept past the blood moon, and the feeling of flying freely was nostalgic. But soon, they lost their balance. They were pulled back down low by the witch's path. They were about to collide with one of the 7 witches. She opened her mouth wide and released wasps. Agatha led the charge and crashed into her. Then they dove into the 3rd trial house. Fortunately, the 7 witches could not enter. The protagonists only needed to pass the trial and escape before the 7 witches caught up. This trial was specifically aimed at Agatha. A blood moon hung outside the window, marking the time when the barrier between the living and the dead was thinnest. At this moment, a board game suddenly popped up. Dean recognized it as a Ouija board game. Immediately, the countdown began on everyone's watches. Dean opened the game manual to read. First, do not use the Ouija board alone. Second, do not speak at the same time. Third, do not mock the spirits. Fourth, do not ask about death. Fifth, be sure to say goodbye at the end. Sixth, keep your hands on the board at all times, or you will release the spirits. With the rules explained, everyone sat in a circle. They placed their hands on the Ouija board. Agatha cautiously asked the first question. May I ask who we have the fortune of summoning? The next second, the Ouija board began to move. To their surprise, it spelled out Mrs. Davis. Agatha acted as if possessed, shaking her head wildly.
Oh my, what a journey.
Lilia almost fell for it, but fortunately, Vita timely revealed the truth. She told Agatha not to pretend anymore. Agatha felt very embarrassed and sat back down. The group continued with the Ouija board game. This time, the overhead lights flickered, and the atmosphere finally became tense. Agatha asked the Ouija board what it wanted. Their fingers slid between the letters, finally spelling out the word punish.
Who do you want to punish? Stop.
Alright, no need to spell it. Everyone knew it was Agatha, but the Ouija board went wild, even starting to dart around the room. The jarring noise gave everyone a headache. Ada shouted, "Punish Agatha." The agitated Ouija board settled down. They had to punish Agatha to pass the trial of the house. Coincidentally, everyone in the room, except Dean, had grievances with Agatha. They slowly surrounded her. They planned to tie Agatha up. However, Agatha vanished in an instant, and the room fell into darkness. Something dripped onto Dean. He looked up, and was shocked to see a bruised Agatha. The next second, she crawled on all fours as if possessed. The scene turned into something like The Exorcist. She was about to lunge at Dean. Ada hurriedly called out to stop her. Unexpectedly, Agatha grabbed her by the throat. Alice rushed forward to help. Lilia fumbled to turn on the lights. The moment the lights turned on, Agatha vanished. A white ghost appeared. She was Ivanora Harness, a Salem resident, and Agatha's mother. Ivan was the leader of the coven that wanted to kill her own daughter. Now she wanted everyone to abandon Agatha and continue down the witch's path. Upon hearing this, Agatha walked up to her mother. Agatha did not understand why she was unwilling to forgive her.
You were born evil. I ought to have killed you the moment you left my body.
Ada believed they should not interfere in family matters. The examiners agreed to let the others leave. They didn't need to take Agatha along, as everyone was just using each other for their own needs in a temporary team. Seeing the deal was done, Ivanora once again entered her daughter's body. Alice instinctively rushed forward to stop her, but her magic was absorbed by Agatha. At this critical moment, Dean saw the Ouija board reset. He hurried over to ask who had come. This time, the answer was Nicholas. Upon hearing that name, Agatha suddenly came to her senses, but Alice was already dead. Agatha couldn't argue. She tried to explain that she couldn't control her powers earlier, but this time, Dean no longer believed Agatha's words. He even suspected that, from the very beginning, Agatha wanted to take the Coven's powers. The already divided organization was now facing disbandment. Dean posed a soul-searching question. Is this the meaning of being a witch? To kill one's companions to achieve one's goals? I will never become someone like you.
Are you sure? You're so much like your mother.
As soon as he finished speaking, Ada and Lilia grabbed Agatha. They threw her into the swamp. Their eyes glowed blue, and their behavior was strange. Then Dean suddenly unleashed a surge of energy. He pushed both of them into the swamp as well. Regarding Dean's identity, let's go back 3 years in time. On the day of his 18th birthday, Dean was then named William and was a Jew. His parents held a coming-of-age ceremony for him at the Eastview Synagogue. During the party, William sneaked into a palm reading area, wanting to know about his future. Unexpectedly, the palm reader turned out to be Lilia. She saw the reverse tower card in William's future, which indicated that disaster was imminent. So Lilia wrote a talisman to protect her identity, and tucked it into William's coat. The charm took effect immediately. Lilia forgot everything that had just happened. Not long after, the guests at the party received a message that strange occurrences were happening in Westview. Everyone had to rush home. William got into the car with his parents. He touched the magic talisman in the pocket of his suit. William saw the town of Westview, covered by a massive red dome. This was the battleground of Agatha and Wanda. His father, driving, was also drawn to the phenomenon, nearly crashing into an oncoming vehicle. He swerved violently and crashed into a tree. William in the back seat was severely injured and bleeding profusely. Just then, a police car passed by. His father hurried over to flag it down for help. Meanwhile, in a daze, William heard Wanda bidding farewell to her 2 sons Tommy and Billy. The next moment, William woke from this dream, still calling out Tommy's name. Clearly, at this point, William was already dead. His body now housed Wanda's son, Billy. At this moment, his father arrived with a female police officer. This police officer was the guardian witch Alice. As Billy was taken for emergency treatment, he realized his soul had returned, reborn within a stranger's body. Fortunately, his mind-reading ability remained. To avoid raising suspicion, Billy falsely claimed he had amnesia after the accident, but he could read the sorrow of William's parents. The couple was worried about their son losing his memory, so Billy decided to do his best to play the role of William. 3 years passed in the blink of an eye. Billy became accustomed to William's life. He also met his soulmate Eddie. Billy didn't want to hide his true self from him, so he told Eddie the truth. Since the accident, he had an additional soul within him. After 3 years of influence, and the effect of the charm, Billy was no longer sure of who he really was. Fortunately, Eddie had a high level of acceptance. She actually didn't question this unreasonable statement. Billy led Eddie into the bedroom. He had been gathering information over the years. Billy wanted to find out what exactly happened in Westview 3 years ago. He turned on his computer and switched off the skincare channel. Then Billy clicked on the footage of the red dome, captured by a passerby 3 years ago. The barrier displayed runes, indicating that the dome was related to a spell. Billy found an informant on an online forum. He prepared to take the risk to meet them. Eddie, worried, decided to accompany him. The two arrived at an underground parking lot. They waited a long time to meet the online contact. The visitor was none other than Ralph, the fake Quicksilver manipulated by Agatha in WandaVision. Due to the events of that year, Ralph was in a poor mental state now. Ralph mentioned that Wanda had 2 children, Billy and Tommy, the speedy one and the mind-reading brother. Hearing this, Billy had a rough idea about his own identity. In addition, Ralph also mentioned that Agatha was still trapped in Westview. After Billy returned home, he began searching for information about Agatha. Billy noticed The Witch's Path. At this moment, the record player nearby suddenly played The Witch's Path sung by Rona Wu. Billy felt that fate was calling him to step onto this dangerous path. The book said that as long as one reached the end of the witch's path, they would be able to find the missing pieces. Because Ralph mistakenly believed that WandaVision was dead, it led Billy to think his parents were dead as well. So he decided to embark on the witch's path to retrieve his only remaining relative Tommy. That night, Billy drove to Westview. On the way, Eddie sent a text message, using a black heart to refer to Billy. This corresponded perfectly with Lilia's earlier prophecy about the last member of the Witch Coven. Because the spell diviner cannot write Billy's name, Lilia drew a black heart instead. This meant that Billy had always been a member of the Coven. Vita was the one with the unknown identity. When Billy found Agatha in Westview, she had been affected by Wanda's spell, believing she was just an ordinary police officer. To break the spell left by Wanda, Billy needed to find a personal item belonging to Agatha. Next came the part where he stole the pendant and got caught, and the events that occurred in the previous episodes. One important point to note is that, when Agatha asks about his identity, whether Billy answers William Kaplan, or truthfully states Billy Maximoff, the protection charm will take effect. The story then shifts back to the present timeline. Agatha was thrown into the swamp by Billy. She quickly climbed up, holding onto a branch. Agatha took off her dirty coat, wiping the foul sludge off her face. At the same time, Billy crushed the protection charm. In fact, Agatha had already sensed something, because Billy had a similar aura to Wanda. It wasn't until he used his magic that Agatha confirmed Billy was Wanda's son. She admired his ability to regain his soul, seizing every possible opportunity to survive. This was the mark of a qualified witch. Agatha couldn't care less about her companion thrown into the swamp. She invited Billy to walk the witch's path with her.
But I don't need you anymore. I don't know if I ever did.
After Billy finished speaking, he wanted to cast a spell, but just now, it was purely an emotional outburst. He accidentally triggered his own abilities. Billy had not truly mastered the use of magic. Agatha guessed in her mind the purpose of Billy's entry into the witch's path. Since Agatha did not know that Wanda was still alive, she immediately guessed that Billy wanted to find Tommy. At this point, both of them had their own needs. Billy temporarily couldn't use magic again, so he could only agree to accompany Agatha. Agatha tried to ease the tension between them. She let Billy ask a few curious questions, and she promised to answer honestly. Billy asked where Vita had gone. Agatha replied that this was not a question she could answer. Try another one. I am your mother's former best friend. I know many of Wanda's secrets. Billy said that Wanda was not his mother. He had his own mother. It seems that Billy is not satisfied with Wanda's decision to sacrifice his entire family to save the town. But he couldn't help but ask Agatha, is Wanda really dead? Agatha did not give a clear answer. As they spoke, they had already arrived at the fourth castle. As soon as they entered, they donned the classic attire of Western witch tales. In the center of the room lay a deck of tarot cards. Billy wanted to pick them up and take a look. The hourglass behind them suddenly began to show a countdown. Unexpectedly, tarot divination was the content of this test. After all, Billy was just an amateur. He casually placed the card into the slot, and a sword unexpectedly fell from above. Only then did the two realize that dozens of swords were hanging from the ceiling. If their divination continued to fail, the swords above them would impale them. Billy nervously placed the second card, and another sword fell from the ceiling. Agatha lost her patience. She directly grabbed the cards and placed them haphazardly. The swords on the ceiling began to fall. One nearly impaled Billy. Agatha's thought was very simple. Just keep trying, until the right card is placed in the right position, or until all the swords on the ceiling fall. But this method was clearly ineffective, because after the 6 slots were filled, the ceiling began to lower gradually. Billy couldn't help but exclaim, if only Lilia were here. At this moment, Lilia and Ada were moving through a secret chamber. Lilia asked in confusion where they were going. Hearing this, Ada was even more puzzled. Didn't you say we were going through the tunnel to find a bookshelf? You also said Dean was Wanda's son Billy. It turned out that Lilia's consciousness had become disoriented. Not long ago, she had entered another timeline. Lilia saw herself in a flowing robe, falling into darkness, so she experienced a blank memory. Lilia forgot what she had previously told Ada. Ada also felt that Lilia was like a completely different person from 5 minutes ago. The latter was about to retort, when her consciousness began to jump erratically within the timelines. Lilia saw Alice, who had not died. She immediately warned her.
Alice, don't try to save Agatha!
Yes, I love this plan.
The next moment, Lilia's consciousness returned to her hometown from hundreds of years ago. Her divination teacher sat across from her. The body Lilia saw in the first trial was that of this teacher, even though Lilia was trapped in the body of her younger self. But the teacher could still tell she was from the future. Lilia admitted that she was from a century later. Upon hearing this, the teacher continued his lesson. He instructed Lilia to use tea leaves for divination, which could reveal her future fate. Lilia had always been reluctant to use it. After all, foreseeing the future without being able to change it was inherently a painful thing. Now she steeled herself to look into the teacup, but her consciousness suddenly snapped back to the tunnel. Ada watched as she fluctuated between confusion and clarity. She asked Lilia what was happening. Lilia had to confess that she had lived a disordered life since childhood. Her consciousness would jump erratically within her own timeline. Originally, as she grew older, the situation had improved, but the closer she got to the end, the worse it became. Ada thought that Lilia was referring to the end of the witch's path.
Like your full powers returning?
I'm not so sure I want it.
Lilia's consciousness arrived at the 4th trial. She was about to get angry with Billy, who threw herself into the swamp. Ada stepped in to stop the two. Compared to our grievances, the urgent matter is to get through this trial quickly. Billy couldn't help but ask Lilia, did you cast the protection charm on me back then? Lilia did not hide the truth. She admitted that on the night of his coming-of-age ceremony, She saw what would happen to Billy, and foresaw the changes that would come in the future. Lilia felt that Billy needed time to adjust, so she drew a protection charm for him. Just as she finished speaking, 2 more swords fell. It seemed that both not placing a card and placing it incorrectly would lead to punishment. Lilia wanted to know where it had gone wrong, but her consciousness instantly returned to the moment the noise of the 3rd trial started.
I hated this the first time!
It is worth noting that Lilia used the phrase for the first time here, indicating that she had heard this noise more than once. Immediately after, Lilia was transported back to the day she first saw Agatha and the other woman at home. Lilia covered her head and screamed, because at that moment, Lilia had just experienced the noise attack from the 3rd trial. The frequent jumps left her on the verge of collapse. When Lilia opened her eyes again, she was back hundreds of years ago.
Please just tell me how to control what's happening.
Your task is not to control, but to see.
Just as she finished speaking, she returned to the tunnel once more. At this time, Lilia had just finished talking with Ada about her ability to time travel. So when Ada saw her like this, she guessed that Lilia had time traveled again. So she asked if Lilia had gained any new information.
I know what the next trial is.
It's Tara.
Why did you say that?
Because you're the one who told me.
Just then, Lilia found Billy's lost notebook, and quietly tucked the notebook away. Ada suddenly asked, "Why did the disorder decrease when you grew up?" Lilia candidly replied, "Because I didn't want this ability, so I have been ignoring it." Agatha's voice echoed nearby. They indeed discovered a bookshelf ahead. At this moment, the timeline coincided with Agatha's team discovering the descending ceiling. Lilia and Ada burst into the castle. Billy thought they would be angry about the swamp incident, but Lilia had already lost her temper once before. Now she got straight to the point and helped Billy with the divination. Lilia asked him to pose the most important question. After Billy finished asking his question, the ceiling finally stopped. Lilia began to explain the tarot cards. The 6 slots correspond to 7 meanings. In the center is the Traveler, representing Billy's identity. The first card directly in front is the missing piece, representing the reason for Billy's request. The upper left corner is the Path Behind, representing the wounds Billy has suffered and the lessons learned. The upper right corner is the Path Ahead, representing the space for growth and discovery. The left side represents the obstacles faced, and the right side is the unexpected gains. Finally, there will be an additional card in the center. That represents the destination. After Lilia finished her introduction, she instructed Billy to clear his mind and focus on the question he had just asked. For the first identity card, Billy drew the Magician. This meant he had infinite potential and the ability to turn goals into reality. However, when the card was placed down, a sword still fell from the ceiling. Lilia remained steadfast and continued to let Billy draw cards. For the second card, the missing piece, he drew the Sun. This card represents good fortune, joy, and reunion. This sounded like what Billy was missing. But once again, a sword fell above everyone's heads. Billy did not hesitate, and he drew a card for the Path Behind.
Oh, no! Get off me!
Lilia spoke 3 sets of lines. When combined, they formed the phrase, "At first, we truly hated each other, but now I love you all." No wonder that during the first trial, Lilia inexplicably said, "I love you all." At this moment, she returned to hundreds of years ago. Lilia asked her teacher, "What went wrong this time?" The teacher countered with a question, "Why have you truly embarked on the witch's path?" Lilia stated that it was to reclaim her magic, but the teacher knew that this was not the true reason.
I'm a forgotten woman.
Then remember yourself.
What's worth remembering?
Lilia hated the phrase "remember" the most. A century ago, she had foreseen her teacher's death. The entire coven would vanish due to an illness, yet she had no power to change the future. Lilia could only watch everyone die. Upon hearing this, the teacher told Lilia, "Death is inevitable for everyone. Death will eventually find you, before you completely fall. It's better to think carefully about what you will do with the time you have left." Lilia finally awakened to the truth. She was instantly back at the moment she fell into the tunnel. Lilia told Ada everything she knew. This was also the reason why Ada knew about the trial content, Billy's identity, and the information about searching for the bookshelf. Now Lilia had pieced together the clues, and returned to the moment she fell into the swamp. Now, in front of them were 2 paths, one leading away from the witch's path, and the other leading to the tunnel that went to the bookshelf. Suddenly, the figure of the cold witch, 7, flashed by. They were also searching for Agatha's whereabouts. The 2 waited for 7 to leave before stepping out. Lilia decided to rescue Agatha through her own 4th trial.
I hope you'll join me.
Why?
Because you are my sister in the craft.
Ada ultimately decided to join Lilia on the adventure. The scene shifted. Lilia's consciousness returned to the divination table. The table was inscribed with "My path comes from time." This referred specifically to Lilia. She could no longer escape from the abilities she possessed. In this trial, the true diviner was not Billy, but Lilia. She drew her first identity card that represented herself.
I am
the Queen of Cups.
Now you see.
And placed the Queen of Cups into the slot. No swords fell from the ceiling, but it continued to press down. Next was the missing piece. The card was the Three of Pentacles. Lilia saw the day when the rent was due, and she was forced to join Agatha. The card was interpreted as collaboration, socializing, and the unique voice of impending harmony. This referred to the newly formed coven. The third card, the Path Behind, represented lessons. The card was the Knight of Wands. Lilia saw Alice die trying to save Agatha. Death was undoubtedly the greatest lesson. The card was interpreted as filled with rage, brave resistance. The fourth card, the Path Ahead, represented growth. The card was the High Priestess. Lilia returned to the first time she met Ada. This hinted that Ada would lead them to the end. The card was interpreted as a tremendous mental power that cannot or will not be utilized. The fifth card, the Obstacles, was the Three of Swords. On the night Billy was hurt, Agatha was very sad. The card was interpreted as heartbreak, sorrow, and grief. The sixth card, the Unexpected Gain, was the Tower reversed. William first met Lilia on the day of his coming-of-age ceremony. That was when the entire story began. The card was interpreted as disaster, destruction, and magical transformation. Finally, the destination. Lilia's consciousness returned to the moment she fell into the tunnel. A shadow slowly emerged. She is the Grim Reaper Vita. This signifies that Lilia will ultimately face death. At this moment, the cards returned to their places and the ceiling rose. Lilia asked Agatha, "Is Vita the Grim Reaper?" At this point, Agatha had no choice but to admit it. Just then, the voice of the seven witches came from a distance. Lilia hurriedly urged them to leave. She told Agatha a strange phrase: "If she calls you a coward, just lie down." Immediately after, Lilia returned the notebook to Billy. She prepared to stay behind to confront the seven witches.
I loved being a witch.
Those who pass the trial and don't leave will face misfortune. Lilia flipped the Tower card. The entire space instantly inverted. The seven were lifted to the ceiling and pierced by the sharp swords. In the end, Lilia also let go and completed her fall. She had regained herself and filled the void. Now it was time to discuss Vita's identity as the Grim Reaper. The scene shifted back to the wooden house in the third trial. Alice woke up from her dream and realized that her physical body was dead. Vita was ready to take her away, but Alice didn't understand why she only had this little time. Vita spoke to awaken the dreamer. "Aren't you the guardian witch? To die protecting others is your duty." Upon hearing this, Alice finally accepted her death. She followed Vita into the underworld. After resolving Alice's soul, she still had to collect Lilia and the seven witches. Vita should have been pleased to see the pile of bodies, but she couldn't tolerate Agatha's deception. Agatha's deliberate concealment of Billy's identity. Vita wanted to know what this kid wants. When he enters the witch's path, Agatha candidly admitted that Billy wanted to find Tommy. Vita stated that Tommy's soul was not in the underworld. The Scarlet Witch's son had stolen the chance for rebirth. She could not allow Billy to resurrect Tommy. Agatha suggested, "Then you can kill him." But the key issue was that Vita couldn't kill Billy. If he died, he would be reincarnated. He would disappear into the sea of people. The only way was to make Billy willingly surrender to death. After some thought, Agatha agreed to help Vita, but the condition was that after it was done, Vita couldn't pursue her until her natural death. The two agreed not to meet again. Vita hesitated but agreed to cooperate. She parted the curtain and disappeared into the witch's path. The remaining three regrouped and continued forward, but with Vita's departure, they were short the Green Witch. Agatha mentioned that the Potion Witch had magic similar to the Green Witch's earth magic. With Ada around, that should be enough. Just as she finished speaking, she tripped over a shoe on the ground. The three found themselves back at the starting point. The shoes they had initially taken off were right in front of them. Could it be that the witch's path was a circle? Did the starting point also represent the end? But Agatha's magic had not returned. Billy was also enraged. They had taken off their shoes out of respect, but now the witch's path didn't follow the rules. Billy no longer wanted to show respect either. He said this and put his shoes back on. Billy was instantly transported into a body bag. The three arrived in a uniquely shaped enclosed space. They were still wearing hospital gowns. This should be the final trial. The essence of green witchcraft lies in the cycle of life. constant growth and decay, and above the space were growth lights, which meant the requirement for this trial was to create life in a place without water or soil. If all the lights went out, it would signify the end of the trial countdown. Ada remained very calm, because she wanted to carry on Lilia's legacy, to help everyone through the final trial. Agatha couldn't help but scoff. What can you do, a witch without magic? How can you possibly save us? Ada indeed harbored resentment towards the Boston doctor who had taken her magic. She couldn't help but recount the time her magic was stolen. Agatha's expression changed when she heard this. Ada caught the change in her expression. She immediately realized that Agatha was that doctor. Ada quickly used her hair to bind Agatha. Magic returned to Ada's body. After 100 years, she once again felt the long-lost power. Ada couldn't help but cry tears of joy. Billy was just about to congratulate her, but Ada suddenly vanished into thin air. Agatha explained, Ada has regained her missing power, and she has left the witch's path. Agatha immediately thought, since I want magic and you have magic, if Billy gives her the magic, then the problem would be solved. Billy quickly interrupted Agatha's delusion. For you, it's about completing the task. But doesn't that mean he would have to stay here and wait to die? The light above them slowly dimmed. Agatha surprisingly told Billy, I know how to find Tommy. Agatha instructed Billy to sit down with her. Then she guided him to use magic to sense the world. In a daze, Billy saw a drowning boy. The poor child was being pushed into a pool by bullies. He would drown soon.
There's no one to love him. He's got no one. Agatha, am I killing this boy so my brother can live?
In the end, Tommy's soul was inserted into the body of the drowning boy. Billy realized his wish and left the witch's path. The ground cracked open due to the surge of power. Now, only Agatha sat alone. Unexpectedly, she softened in the end. She sacrificed herself to save Billy. Agatha removed the pendant she never took off. She took out a lock of her son's hair. To her surprise, a miracle happened quickly. There was a dandelion seed stuck inside the pendant, and beneath the cracked floor was soil. She watered the seed with her tears and buried it in the ground. Under the light of the last life lamp, the dandelion quickly sprouted and bloomed. Immediately after, the ceiling cracked and the room trembled. Agatha hurriedly crawled toward the stairs. She emerged from her backyard. Vita was guarding nearby because she has broken her promise. She said she would take Agatha's soul. Just as Agatha was about to launch an attack, she realized that her magic had not yet returned. Strange phenomena reappeared in Westview Town. The surrounding residents felt uneasy. Agatha wanted to draw a magic circle to expel the menace, but Vita was the Grim Reaper, the natural order of all things. The magic circle couldn't drive her away at all.
You are a coward!
And she calls you a coward.
Hit the deck!
Although Lilia's prophecy helped Agatha avoid a fatal blow, but she had no magic. Agatha was no match for Vita at all. At this critical moment, Billy arrived. He had also donned the classic look from the comic. Billy knew he couldn't defeat Vita, so he chose to attack Agatha. Billy hoped she would absorb some of his magic, which was equivalent to handing his life over to Agatha. As power continuously filled, Agatha regained her spirit, and this time, Agatha kept her promise. At the last moment, she released Billy, who was almost drained. Vita knocked him away with a single strike. She focused on dealing with Agatha. Billy watched the two battle through the glass of the greenhouse. All he could see were flashes outside. It was evident that the production team was out of budget, even though Agatha fought with all her might. But she still couldn't defeat the Grim Reaper. Billy ran over to check her injuries, but Agatha said, Vita only wants one of us. The one who should die is me. Billy was deeply moved upon hearing this. He stepped forward and told the Grim Reaper, take me instead. He was willing to sacrifice himself. Agatha wiped away the blood after hearing this. She told Vita that she had not broken her promise. Now Billy willingly surrenders to death. She could take Billy away now. Billy's sincerity was given to the wrong person. In truth, Agatha was willing to sacrifice herself to save him. But if there was a glimmer of hope, she would definitely prioritize herself. Agatha was always a complex character. She laughed and prepared to leave, but Agatha suddenly heard Billy asking her with telepathy,
Is this how Nikki died?
This soul-piercing, fatal question broke Agatha's principles. In the end, she fell into the embrace of the Grim Reaper, ending her long life. Agatha plummeted to the ground, turning into grass and wood. Billy stepped forward to pick up her pendant. He left Westview and returned to William's house. At this point, it had only been 24 hours since he left. Billy returned to his room and changed his clothes. He suddenly noticed that the room's decor was very familiar. Every item corresponded to the setup of the witch's path. Billy couldn't help but remember what Agatha had said. the witch's path doesn't actually exist, and the identity card he touched was the magician. This meant transforming a goal into reality. Billy looked at the painting that resembled the house from the first trial, the board game that had appeared in the witch's path, and the shoes placed on the table.
You're so much like your mother.
It was me.
Wanda's chaos magic is the ability to alter reality. Billy is indeed just like his mother. The so-called witch's path was only created by him subconsciously, using his own power. At this moment, the story suddenly jumped to the year 1750. At that time, Agatha was pregnant for 10 months. She was struggling to give birth in the woods. The child hadn't been born yet, when she was visited by the Grim Reaper Vita. This signified that Agatha's child would die in the womb. She hurriedly pleaded with the Grim Reaper, though Vita could not alter life and death. Because she loved Agatha, Vita made an exception and extended the life of the fetus. In the end, Agatha successfully gave birth to a baby boy, and named him Nicholas. Agatha loved this child dearly, and used the pitiful image of a single mother and orphan, to continually deceive the witches who extended their help to her. When Nicholas was 6 years old, he was already able to help his mother deceive the witches. However, the young Nicholas did not understand why his mother had to kill these witches. Agatha coldly explained, "Of course, it's for survival. If you don't kill them, then they will find a way to kill us." Nicholas, who could not grasp the deeper meaning, hummed a tune he had made up, and this song was the precursor to the witch's path. As Nicholas grew up, Agatha's fear grew stronger. She didn't know when Vita would come, and also didn't know how long Nicholas would live. Agatha could only cherish every day spent with her son. She also helped Nicholas add lyrics to his tune. The mother and son completed the witch's path together. Agatha instructed Nicholas to pretend to be an orphan, and then go to a nearby tavern to sing for money, while luring kind witches to kill her. But Nicholas no longer wanted to hunt them, so he rushed out of the tavern, disregarding the plan. In the evening, he sensed that his mother was a bit angry. Nicholas proactively promised, "Tomorrow, I will kill more witches." But Agatha didn't get angry. Instead, she sang a song and hugged her son to sleep. Unbeknownst to her, today was Nicholas's day of death. In the evening, Vita leaned in the darkness, beckoning him. Nicholas kissed his mother, and took the Grim Reaper's hand, leaving the woods. As the first light of dawn shone on the earth, Agatha awoke from her dream. She realized that Nicholas was already dead. Agatha wept as she buried her son's body, singing the witch's path as she did so, while placing a lock of hair into the pendant. Unexpectedly, a strange woman suddenly appeared. She asked Agatha if she knew the way to the witch's path. Agatha's expression shifted from confusion to understanding. It turned out that this song had spread over the years. It has been regarded as the key to opening the witch's path. There are indeed witches who believe in the lyrics. They think the witch's path will offer enticing rewards. Agatha immediately thought of a plan. She claimed, "Of course I know the witch's path, and I am willing to lead you in. But the first step is that we need to form a coven." Agatha used the legend of the witch's path to deceive these witches with various abilities to gather. She claimed that some were unworthy to step onto the witch's path. Agatha provoked them to attack her, taking the opportunity to absorb their powers. Agatha relied on this enticing legend to kill many witches who sought to fulfill their wishes, until she was about to take another action to kill Lilia and others. The witch's path actually appeared. Only Agatha knew that this path should not exist, so she realized that Billy was not simple. The scene shifted back to the present, and Billy, having figured everything out, felt shocked. He heard Agatha's laughter in his ears. Billy stiffly turned around, and saw Agatha transformed into a ghost. Billy wanted to confirm his thoughts. He asked Agatha if he had created the witch's path, and indirectly caused the deaths of Mrs. Davis, Alice, and Lilia. Agatha explained that she killed Alice, and that Lilia's death was her own choice. As for Mrs. Davis, Agatha didn't care at all. She comforted Billy, saying at least he saved one person. At this moment in Westview, Ada emerged from a patch of grass. She gazed at the setting sun, feeling as if she were reborn. Then she used magic to leave the place. Agatha bluntly stated that from the first day, she wanted to kill them all in the basement. Yet it was the witch's path you created that gave them insight and allowed Ada to be reborn. Then Agatha told Billy, centuries ago, she had told her son one thing: if you want to be a witch, you must become familiar with this feeling.
I'll never get used to this.
We'll see.
Billy then returned to Westview. He once again entered Agatha's basement. Billy found that the door to the witch's path was still in place. He immediately drew a magic circle on the ground. Agatha asked him what he intended to do, but Billy refused to say anything. Agatha wasn't insistent on pressing him, but her personal item, the pendant, was in Billy's hands. She couldn't act without it. At this moment, Agatha examined the entire magic circle, and realized that Billy wanted to expel her. After death, one should go to where they belong. No matter how Agatha pleaded or argued, he continued to chant the incantation, until Agatha noticed that she was slowly fading away. Finally, she spoke the truth.
Why are you still here? Why won't you just die?
Because I can't face him!
It turned out that Agatha was afraid to face Nicholas. She picked up the fallen pendant and put it on. Billy felt Agatha's love for her son. In the end, the two reached an agreement. Billy agreed to let Agatha stay by his side as a ghostly mentor. He also cast a spell to close the witch's path. Billy carved the names of the victims into the ground. As one door closed, another door would surely open. The two would join hands to find Tommy. They began to take the first step into a new chapter. The story of this season ends here. Episode 7. Lilia's Awakening is the highlight of this season. The production quality far exceeds that of the other episodes. The success of WandaVision made Marvel realize the immense potential of the television market. However, the subsequent series like Echo and Secret Invasion received mediocre responses. In the end, they gave up on having film industry professionals create series across different fields. They opened a new chapter with Agatha, Coven of Chaos, as a highly topical witch theme, along with the involvement of a popular cast. This series became Marvel's best-reviewed show in recent times. Each character's arc is shaped through the witch's path. The script is smooth and coherent. The pacing is well handled. Overall, it is still worth watching. If you enjoy my channel, please click to subscribe.